He called me too spiritual. My coffee went cold before my patience did. That was the morning I realized God wasn't the only one listening. My name's Helen. I'm 49 years old, and this is the story of how a woman they mocked for praying in the break room became the name they whisper when their world starts falling apart. It started in the office break room, that tight little space between burnt coffee and broken dreams. Every morning at 7:45, I'd bow my head before my cup. Just a quiet second, not bothering nobody, but to Mr. Dalton, my manager with the loud tie and louder ego, that was a problem. "You praying again, Helen?" "Mm-hmm. Maybe pray for better numbers this quarter." He said it loud enough for the interns to laugh. I smiled, the way you do when your peace costs less than your pride. "Numbers change," I told him, "but favor don't expire." He blinked, that tight corporate smile frozen mid-smirk. By 9 a.m., he'd already copied my presentation slides and took my name off the file. By lunch, he'd called me too spiritual in front of the team. Said it like a diagnosis, like faith was a virus. "We need results, not reflections." "Then you should have hired a robot," I said. Laughter scattered like marbles. Nervous. Quick. He didn't fire me that day, but the next 3 months felt like slow-burn exile. Meetings without invites, projects reassigned, emails accidentally missed. I stayed quiet, still prayed, but I stopped saying amen out loud. One night, after everyone left, I was cleaning up my desk when Tanya, the youngest on our team, whispered, "Miss Helen, you okay? He's been rough on you lately." "Baby," I said, "when you walk with peace, rough roads just polish your shoes." She laughed, then looked down at my Bible by the stapler. "You really believe that helps?" "It don't help," I said. "It holds." The irony. 3 weeks later, Dalton used my forecast model, the one he said was too emotional, and landed a regional award for strategic innovation. Didn't even mention my name. But the next morning, his voice cracked during his acceptance speech on the office Zoom call. Said he had a personal matter. Nobody asked questions. I didn't either. I just kept my peace. Because when God starts rearranging chairs at the table, you don't grab your old seat. You wait for your new one. 6 months passed. I left that company, quiet and clean. Started consulting. Small businesses, churches, nonprofits, folks who still believed in prayer and profit. And it worked. Word spread faster than gossip in a beauty salon. By year 2, Helen's Hand, that's what they called my consultancy, had clients in 4 states. One morning, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something said, "Pick up." Helen? That voice, that same condescending bass that once told me to keep the faith off company time. "Dalton? Yeah, long time." Not long enough to forget. He chuckled, nervous. "Listen, I heard you started something on your own. Congrats. Appreciate it. Thing is, I could use your help." Silence. Just that low static hum of irony. "Help?" I said. "I thought you preferred robots." "I'm serious, Helen. My business, it's not going well. And I don't know what to do anymore. I was wondering if you could maybe pray for me?" I leaned back in my chair, let the quiet stretch. "You called me too spiritual, remember?" "I know," he said. "And I was wrong." The thing about grace, it's not about proving who's right. It's about remembering who you are. "I'll pray for you," I told him, "but not the way you think." "What do you mean?" "I'll pray that you learn what peace costs, and that you finally pay full price." Weeks turned into months. I didn't hear from him again until the headline hit my feed. Dalton Enterprises files for bankruptcy. I read it twice, not out of joy, out of confirmation. Because sometimes God don't need your revenge. He just schedules his own timing. That evening, I lit a candle. Not to celebrate, just to honor the lesson. Peace smells like sandalwood when it's earned. A month later, my receptionist buzzed me. "Miss Helen, there's a gentleman here, says he's an old colleague." I looked up. Dalton stood in the lobby, thinner, paler, tie gone. Humility looks different on a man who used to weaponize pride. "You got a minute?" "For you?" I said. "5, maybe." He sat across from me, twisting his hat like it owed him answers. "I lost everything," he said. "I read. The board pulled out. Investors gone. I can't even make payroll. And what you want from me?" "Advice, prayer, something." I folded my hands, leaned forward. "You used to mock me for this posture," I said. "Funny how full circles feel." He dropped his head. "I deserve that." "No," I said softly. "You deserve growth. But growth don't come cheap." He sighed, then whispered, "How do you stay so calm, Helen? Don't you ever get angry?" "Every day," I said. "But I tithe my anger into purpose." He stared. "You really believe prayer can fix this?" "Prayer don't fix," I said. "It focuses. Fixing's your job." Before he left, he asked if I could send him a quote for consulting. I told him I'd pray on it. Next morning, he got an email from Helen's Hand Consulting, LLC. The subject line read, "Faith has a fee, underneath standard consultation, by $200 per hour." He paid it. Not because he had to, because he needed to. Our first session felt like deja vu in reverse. I sat where he once sat. He took notes where I once was ignored. That's what I call poetic payroll. He told me about the shady partners, the unpaid vendors, the restless nights. I listened, no judgment, just the calm that makes truth fall out of people like loose change. Then I asked, "When did you stop praying?" "After my father died," he said. "Didn't see the point." "So you replaced prayer with power." "Guess I did." "And how's that been working?" He smiled weakly. "You already know." By month 3, his company restructured. By month 6, he wrote me a testimonial. The same man who once said faith had no place in business. It began, "Helen saved my company with wisdom and grace. Turns out prayer looks a lot like strategy when it's done right." But this ain't a story about karma. It's about clarity. Because sometimes the people who mock your faith are just rehearsing for the day they'll need it. The night after he sent that testimonial, I sat by my window, city lights reflecting in my tea. My phone buzzed again. A text from Tanya, that intern who once asked if prayer really helped. "Miss Helen, I got promoted today. I started praying again. Thought you'd like to know." I smiled, closed my eyes, whispered, "Favor don't expire, baby." Then I set my alarm for 5:45 a.m. because prayer still starts before business hours. You ever notice how folks only find God when their Wi-Fi stops working? That's what I thought about while I sat across from Dalton, week after week, watching him relearn humility. He'd come in wearing the same gray jacket, the same tired face, trying to trade pride for peace like it was a coupon he found too late. "Helen," he said one morning, "I did everything right. I hustled, I networked, I hired consultants. And yet," I asked, "and yet here I am." He leaned forward, palms flat on the table, eyes wet with something that wasn't quite shame but close enough to sting. "How did you keep faith when everything went wrong?" "Because I stopped trying to keep it," I said. "Faith kept me." He blinked. I watched the words sink in like slow rain into dry soil. "You really believe that?" "Believe it? Baby, I lived it." That's when I told him about the year I almost lost my own house, the year my ex-husband walked out with more apologies than furniture, the year I kept lights on with prayer, pennies, and the promise that tomorrow still had room for miracles. I can still see it, the day the eviction notice touched my door like a dare. Pink slip, cold wind. My daughter, Renee, sitting at the kitchen table asking, "Mama, what we gon' do?" And I told her the only truth I knew. "We gon' pray, baby." She rolled her teenage eyes, like faith was an old coat she'd outgrown. But 2 weeks later, I got a check from a woman I'd helped years ago, Unasked, unexpected, unsigned, except for the words, "God told me to." That's when I learned something Dalton still didn't get. Faith ain't about getting what you want. It's about standing when everything says sit down. He rubbed his chin. "You really think that can work for business?" "It is business," I said. "Discipline, patience, obedience. Same principles, different boardroom." He nodded slow, like a man reading a language he used to know. By month 5, I started seeing glimpses of change. He'd bring coffee for the receptionist. He started thanking his employees. Once I caught him whispering something before a meeting. Not loud, not long, just quiet. Old habits learning new grace. But life ain't a straight road, honey. Sometimes God lets you see the sunrise just to check if you'll still pray when it rains again. 2 weeks later, I got another call. This time, Dalton's voice wasn't nervous. It was broken. "Helen, my wife left. I'm sorry. She said I'm too obsessed with fixing what's already gone." And is she wrong? Silence. You could hear the kind of quiet that only comes when pride finally packs its bags. "I don't know anymore," he said. "I tried everything." "No," I told him. "You tried everyone. You ain't tried surrender yet." That night, I prayed for him. Not for his success, for his peace. Because when peace moves in, success stops feeling like rent. Next morning, he showed up at my office without an appointment. No tie, no briefcase, just a man who'd finally dropped the script. "Can we talk?" "We've been talking." "No," he said. "Not about business. About life." So we did. He told me how he grew up poor in Ohio, working 3 jobs by 18, how every blessing he ever touched came with a side of fear, how his father's last words were, "Don't ever be the one asking for help." I listened, because that's what people mistake for weakness, listening. Truth is, silence is the loudest sermon. After that day, I started calling him Brother Dalton, half joke, half prophecy. He didn't flinch. He smiled. That's how I knew he was healing. A few weeks later, my church was hosting a small business seminar. Faith in finance. I invited him to speak. He said yes. Now, if you've never seen a room full of church mothers and ex-bankers in the same pew, baby, you ain't lived. The Holy Spirit and the spreadsheet trying to share the same microphone. Dalton stood up there, nervous as a man at confession. "I used to mock prayer," he said, voice shaking. "Thought it was for the weak. Turns out weak is what happens when you run out of faith." The room went quiet. Then applause. Real, heavy, from the gut kind. He looked at me, eyes wet again, but this time from gratitude. "Thank you, Helen," he said into the mic. "For what?" "For not letting me drown in my own pride." That clip went viral on Facebook, 500,000 views in 3 days. Comments, full of strangers saying things like, "I needed this today," and "God's timing is perfect." And just like that, Faith in Finance became a series. We booked venues, sponsors called. Even a TV network reached out about turning it into a segment. Dalton and I, the sinner and the saint they called us, became partners. But let me be clear, redemption ain't partnership. It's permission. Permission to grow without guilt. Months later, he called me from a new office. "Helen," he said, "we're back in profit." "You sound surprised." "I am." "Then you still learning," I said. "Peace first, profit second." He laughed. That same laugh that once held arrogance, now softened with grace. "You know," he said, "I told my son about you. He said, 'Dad, sounds like she's your pastor.' Tell him I'm just a consultant who charges in blessings and invoices." By Christmas, Dalton mailed me a card. Inside was a photo of his family. Wife returned, son grinning, and a note that read, "You were right. Favor don't expire." I held that card to my chest because there's something holy about full circle peace. It don't need applause, just quiet proof. That night, Renee came over for dinner. She's grown now, owns her own design firm. While washing dishes, she asked, Mama, you ever get tired of being the strong one? I looked at her hands in the soapy water, same hands that once held crayons and fear. Every day, I said. But strength ain't a job, baby. It's a lifestyle. She smiled, then whispered, You know, folks at my job say I'm too spiritual. I laughed. Tell them it's contagious. Later, as I sat on the porch watching the sky fold into night, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Text said, Hey, Miss Helen, this is Tanya. Remember me from Dalton's team? I quit last month, starting my own firm. Could you pray for me? I typed back, Already did. Tanya's text lingered on my phone like a melody I couldn't shake. I sat there on that porch, night breeze curling through my hair, and thought about all the too spiritual women who'd ever been told to hush, to tone it down, to stop believing in what they couldn't see. They didn't know that faith had memory. And baby, when faith remembers your name, blessings don't need GPS. The next morning, I walked into my office and found a bouquet waiting on my desk. Lilies, my favorite. The card said, From one believer in progress. Tanya. Right beneath that, she'd scribbled, Starting my first contract today. You were right. Faith don't expire. I smiled so wide the receptionist peeked in. Good news, Miss Helen? Better, I said. Proof. By spring, Faith in Finance had grown beyond anything we imagined. We were hosting conferences in Atlanta, Dallas, D.C., rooms filled with people who looked like me, sounded like me, prayed like me, and finally believed that you could talk about credit scores and Christ in the same sentence. But success attracts storms. Always does. And right when everything felt steady, the devil got creative. It started with a call from Dalton at 11:47 p.m., the kind of hour where only trouble rings. Helen, he whispered, I think we've been hacked. Hacked? Emails, client data, everything. Did you call IT? They're on it, but this feels personal. Personal. That word made my spirit sit up. You think it's one of ours? Could be. I made enemies when I let go of my old partners. Then it's time you learn my favorite scripture for warfare, I said. Which one's that? Exodus 14:14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still. He exhaled like the verse itself was oxygen. Next morning, chaos. Emails missing. Client contracts leaked. Someone posted fake invoices online, claiming we were a religious scam. Dalton panicked. I prayed. 2 different responses. 1 result. By evening, the truth surfaced. His former co-founder, Reed, had launched a smear campaign after losing a legal dispute. He'd even created a fake site mimicking ours. Same colors, same logo, just twisted headlines. He's ruining us, Dalton said, pacing the office. No, I said. He's revealing us. What's that supposed to mean? Every attack that don't destroy you defines you. I held a team meeting that night, 20 people, exhausted and scared, phones buzzing, rumors flying. I stood up front, no notes, no mic, just truth. They called us too spiritual once, I said. Now they're calling us too successful. You know what that means? Nobody spoke. It means we're doing something right. The room quieted. You could feel the air change, like fear just lost its voice. We don't fight lies with lawsuits, I said. We fight 'em with legacy. Let the work speak. Let the fruit show. For the next 72 hours, we worked nonstop. Proof documents, client statements, screenshots, timelines. By Sunday, the truth had gone viral again, this time in our favor. News outlets shared the story of a faith-based consultancy surviving digital persecution. Reed's website got shut down. Our following doubled. And Dalton? He sat across from me, hands trembling around his coffee mug. How did you stay so calm through all that? Because peace ain't a reaction, I said. It's preparation. A week later, I got a call from a journalist. Miss Harper, she said, we're doing a feature on resilient women in business. We'd love to interview you. You sure you don't want Dalton? No, ma'am, he said, and I quote, Helen's the real story. That interview changed everything. Headline read, "The Woman Who Prayed Through a Scandal," and won. People flooded our inbox, not for business, but for belief. Mothers asking how to start over, fathers wanting to make peace. Even Reed's sister wrote me privately, "You don't know me, but I've been following your work. My brother won't admit it, but you humbled him in the best way possible." I smiled and typed back, "Tell him humility looks good on him. Maybe it'll stay this time." Meanwhile, Tanya's company took off. She called me crying one night. "Miss Helen, I just signed my first 6-figure deal." "I told you, baby. Faith pays in both currencies. But I feel guilty. Like maybe I don't deserve this yet." "Deserve got nothing to do with destiny," I said. "You prayed for it. Now steward it." Dalton kept growing too, but growth comes with ghosts. One evening after a seminar, he lingered by the church exit while everyone else left. "Helen," he said softly, "I keep waiting for it to fall apart again." "That's trauma talking," I said. "And what do I do with it?" "Same thing I did with mine." "Talk back." He looked confused. "You talk to trauma?" "Every morning," I said. "I tell it, you don't run this house no more." He laughed through his tears. That's the sound of deliverance, if you've never heard it. The next month, we launched a mentorship branch, Hands of Faith. Tanya led design, Dalton oversaw finance, and me, I just stayed in my lane, heart work disguised as homework. We taught workshops in old community centers, places with flickering lights and folding chairs, but the kind of energy money can't buy. Mothers brought daughters. Ex-cons sat next to CEOs, and every session started the same. "My name's Helen," I'd say, "and I'm not your savior, I'm your reminder." Because sometimes folks don't need a new miracle. They just need to remember the last one worked. The more success we had, the quieter I became. Not humble quiet, holy quiet, the kind that listens for what's next before speaking too soon. But the devil, he hates quiet victories. So one afternoon, he sent one wrapped in perfume and nostalgia. My phone buzzed, unknown number again. Voice on the other end, smooth, familiar. "Helen, it's Marcus." My ex-husband, the man who once said my prayers were cute. The same one who left when the checks got thin. "It's been a while," he said. "Long enough," I replied. "I've been hearing about you, on TV, online." "Good. That means I'm harder to ignore than you thought." He chuckled low. "You always had that mouth. And you always underestimated it." He hesitated. Then came the real reason for the call. "Listen, Helen, I'm in some trouble." My company's not doing well. I was wondering if..." "Don't finish that sentence," I said. Silence. Heavy, awkward, full of ghosts. "I just need advice. Maybe a prayer." "You remember how you said prayer don't pay bills?" I was wrong. "I know, but I'm not your lesson this time." He sighed. "You really can't just..." "Marcus," I said, calm but sharp, "the only thing I can do for you is forgive you. Everything else is your work now." That night, I sat by the window, city lights flickering like amen candles, and I realized something deep. Sometimes your peace gets tested not by enemies, but by old chapters trying to reopen themselves. So I whispered to myself, "Too spiritual, huh?" and smiled. Because baby, if spirituality built my freedom, then I'll take that insult as inheritance. I didn't block Marcus's number that night. Didn't answer it again either. Because sometimes peace don't mean you slam the door. Sometimes it means you just stop opening it. But I'd be lying if I said his voice didn't stir something. Not love, not even anger, just a memory I'd already outgrown. The kind of ache that don't hurt anymore. It just hums. Next morning, I woke early, 5:42 a.m. before the alarm. Old habit, my prayer hour. I made my coffee, black with a hint of cinnamon, and opened my Bible. Page fell right on Psalm 23. "He prepareth a table before me in the presence of mine enemies." I smiled. Because, baby, sometimes that table is your company. Sometimes it's your peace. And sometimes it's the sound of your phone buzzing with apologies you don't owe. At 8 a.m., I headed to our downtown office. The sunlight was spilling through the glass walls like gold, warm, clean, holy. Dalton was already there, suit crisp, eyes bright. "Morning, Helen. You're early. Trying to stay in your good graces." "Those ain't mine to give," I said. "They're rented by good behavior." He laughed, but his eyes carried a question. "You all right? You seem quieter than usual." "Just thinking." "About?" "Old chapters that forgot they got closed." Later that day, I had a keynote at a women's empowerment luncheon. Downtown Atlanta, crystal chandeliers, soft jazz playing like background grace. The theme was faith at work, the business of belief. Before I spoke, the event coordinator, a young woman named Kimber, touched my arm. "Miss Helen, I've watched every video you've done. You make me feel like being kind ain't weak." "It's not," I said. "It's just strong in a language the world forgot." Then the mic came my way. I took the stage, heels clicking on that marble-like punctuation, looked out at the crowd, 200 women, all dressed like hope in human form. "They called me too spiritual once," I began. "Said prayer don't belong in boardrooms." A ripple of laughter, soft, knowing. But I learned something. When faith walks into the room, fear looks for the exit. Applause. Not the loud kind, the real kind. Business ain't just about money, it's about meaning. And meaning comes from what you refuse to sell, even when it's profitable. For a moment, the whole room felt like church, not with hymns, with truth. After the event, a woman approached me. Mid-50s, designer scarf, eyes full of old storms. "Miss Helen," she said, "my husband just filed for bankruptcy. We lost everything. I don't even know where to start." "Start where it hurts," I said. "That's where healing hides." She started crying right there. I hugged her. Didn't care who watched, because that's ministry, meeting people where their pride can't reach. That evening, back in my office, I found Dalton sitting in the dark, staring out the window. "You good?" I asked. "You ever feel like no matter how far you've come, there's still a voice saying you ain't enough?" "All the time." "And what do you do with it?" I reminded who's talking. He turned, confused. "Meaning?" "Every lie about your worth got an address. It comes from fear. Don't sign for mail that ain't yours." He exhaled, long and heavy. "You always got a word." "Nah," I said. I just stopped arguing with the truth. Later that night, I got a text, unknown number again. But this one made me pause. "Hi, Miss Helen. This is Marcus Jr., your stepson. I know this is weird, but Dad's really not doing well. I thought maybe you could talk to him." My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Because forgiveness is one thing, reopening the wound that caused it, that's another sermon. But I wrote back anyway. "Tell him I'll pray for him. That's all I can offer." He replied, "He'd still like to see you if you're open." I didn't answer. Not yet. The next morning, I took a long walk through the park before work. Birds chirping. Dew still clinging to the grass like diamonds that hadn't been appraised yet. And for the first time in a while, I asked God a hard question out loud. Why send me back to someone I already survived? Silence. Then wind. Soft, steady, almost like a whisper. Because survival ain't the same as healing. That day, I called Marcus. He sounded tired. Not old, not sick, just done. "Helen," he said softly, "thank you for calling." "Don't thank me yet. I'm sorry for everything. Apologies don't erase Marcus. They just make room." Room for what? Closure or clarity, whichever comes first. He told me about his company. Bad loans, missed payments, investors gone cold. Said he'd prayed for the first time in years. "Did it help?" I asked. "Not yet." "Then you're still in the waiting room. Don't leave before your name gets called." After that call, I sat at my desk, staring at my reflection in the glass. The woman looking back didn't need revenge anymore. She just needed rest. And I realized something Dalton once said had come full circle. When you walk with peace, rough roads just polish your shoes. I smiled, because mine were shining. 2 weeks later, Marcus showed up at the Faith in Finance Atlanta event, sitting quietly in the back row. Didn't approach me, just listened. Afterward, he sent a note through the usher. "You were right. Peace ain't free, but I'm ready to pay now." No name, just that. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel bitterness. I felt release. A month later, I got word his business had gone under completely. He'd moved back to Ohio, started volunteering at a shelter. Funny thing, the article about it called him a man reborn. People online asked if we'd spoken. I told them the truth. I don't need to talk to him. I just need to keep praying the lesson holds. By midsummer, Tanya's firm and mine co-hosted a mentorship retreat. She walked in glowing, success written across her smile like a new last name. "Miss Helen," she said, "you changed my life." "No, baby," I said. "You just believed me when I said you could." Then she pulled out her phone and showed me her new website. Right at the top, her tagline read, "Faith Works." I laughed so hard I almost cried, because that's what this whole story was. Proof that faith works. That night, as I drove home, gospel played low in the background. City lights blurred through my windshield like tears the sky forgot to cry, and I whispered, "He called me too spiritual," then begged my prayers in bankruptcy. I shook my head and smiled. Look at God, always on time, never in a hurry. Peace got a rhythm once you stop fighting it. Mine sounded like tires on wet pavement that night, humming beneath gospel chords and city breath. Every streetlight looked like forgiveness dressed in gold. And I thought, maybe that's what faith really is. Not shouting, not begging, just breathing through what used to break you. The next morning, I woke to a string of messages. Tanya, Dalton, even the journalist from Women of Influence, all of them saying the same thing. "You trending again, Miss Helen." Apparently, a clip from my last speech, the one where I said faith don't expire, people just stop renewing it, had hit 3 million views overnight. Comments were wild. She preaching what therapy feels like. This woman needed a TED Talk yesterday. Too spiritual? Nah, too real. I didn't even post it myself. God did his own marketing. By noon, my assistant rushed in, phone in hand. "Miss Helen, you're not going to believe who just called. Try me. The Oprah Network." I blinked slow. "For what?" "A new docu-series, Faith in Motion. They want you as a guest mentor." For a moment, I just sat there quiet, because every blessing carries a flashback. Every mountain reminds you of mud. "Tell them yes," I finally said, "but make sure they spell his name right before mine." That week was a whirlwind. Contracts, camera tests, interviews. But through all that noise, I still kept my 5:45 prayer time. Dalton tried to tease me about it. "You praying for ratings now?" "No," I said, "for readiness." Because, baby, blessings come with weight limits. You better stretch your faith before it pulls something. 2 days before the shoot, I got a message request on Facebook. Profile picture, Marcus. Caption, "Rebuilding, one prayer at a time." I clicked the message. "Helen, I saw your name on TV. I'm proud of you. Thank you for never giving up on prayer, even when you gave up on me." I stared at it a long time. Didn't cry, didn't reply, just whispered, "Redemption wears different shoes, but it still walks home." The first taping of Faith in Motion felt like déjà vu with lighting. Same coffee, same microphone, but this time I wasn't speaking to rooms of women, I was speaking to the world. The director asked me to start with my story, so I told it, all of it. From break room humiliation to boardroom resurrection, from being mocked for praying to being paid for peace. At one point, the host leaned in and asked, "Miss Helen, what do you say to people who think faith doesn't belong in business?" I tell them faith built the first business, Noah's Ark. God gave instructions, Noah followed, and everybody else bought tickets too late. Laughter erupted, but then I softened my voice. Look, business is just belief with a budget. If you don't believe, the budget won't matter. The episode aired 2 weeks later. Ratings through the roof. Hashtag Dean Too Spiritual started trending. But not as an insult this time. Women all over the world using it like armor. Videos popped up. They called me too spiritual, but I manifested my promotion. They called me too spiritual, but my company just hit 7 figures. They called me too spiritual. Now I hire them. That's when I knew this wasn't my story anymore. It was a movement. Dalton and I decided to start a foundation, the Harper Dalton Initiative, grants for single mothers starting faith-based businesses. Within 3 months, we funded 47 women. Every one of them had a story like mine, quiet, bruised, but still standing. One woman, Denise, said, "Miss Helen, I prayed for an investor. Didn't know she'd come wearing church shoes." "Baby," I told her, "sometimes miracles come with receipts. But success, even righteous success, brings shadows. The more attention we got, the more folks tried to twist the narrative." One journalist wrote, "Is Helen Harper selling salvation or strategy?" I laughed when I read it. "Why not both?" I told Dalton. "If folks can sell chaos and call it lifestyle, I can sell peace and call it purpose." Still, the noise got loud. Hate comments, fake accounts, even one pastor online accusing me of turning faith into brand. I didn't clap back, didn't post a word. Because the moment you argue with small minds, you shrink your miracle to fit their logic. Instead, I posted a photo of my morning coffee with the caption, "Still praying, still prospering." It hit 1 million likes in 2 days. Around that same time, Dalton got engaged to a woman named Alicia. She was kind, bright, sharp as tithing math. When he told me, I smiled big. "You happy?" "Yeah," he said, "scared too." "Good. Fear keeps love honest." He laughed, then paused. "Would you officiate it?" I blinked. "You serious? Who else taught me how to pray without pretense?" I said yes. The wedding was beautiful. Outdoor garden, sunlight bouncing off white roses, jazz band humming, amazing grace, like a slow heartbeat. When it came time to speak, I looked at Dalton and Alicia and said, "I once watched this man mock a prayer. Today I watch him become one." The crowd gasped, then clapped. Tears everywhere. After the ceremony, Alicia hugged me and whispered, "Thank you for saving him." "I didn't," I said. "I just reintroduced him to the one who could." That night, when I got home, I sat on my porch again. Same chair, same stars, different piece. The air smelled like jasmine and closure. Renee called around midnight. "Mama, I watched your show. You're famous now." "Fame ain't the goal, baby." "Then what is?" "Peace that don't need applause." She went quiet, then said, "You always know just what to say." "Nah," I said. "I just learned to stop saying what don't serve my soul." A few days later, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside, a candle labeled "Too Spiritual" and a note, "For the woman who turned mockery into ministry." No signature. But I didn't need one. Some lessons write their own thank you notes. That candle sat on my desk for 3 whole days before I lit it. Something about the way it smelled, like cedar and second chances, made me feel like maybe, just maybe, the whole circle had closed. Too spiritual. That's what they called me. Now it was embossed in gold foil on a soy candle, selling for $49.99 on Etsy. Baby, that's what you call poetic profit. But the truth? I didn't feel finished. Every win started tasting like water. Clean, clear, necessary, but not filling. Dalton noticed before I did. "You good?" "I'm fine." "You sure? You've been quiet lately. Not the holy kind, just heavy." "Maybe peace got weight too," I said. He nodded. "Or maybe you're ready for something bigger." I laughed. I said I wanted peace, not pressure. They come in the same box sometimes. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing that word in my head, bigger. It echoed like a dare and a promise at the same time. So I prayed. Not one of those eloquent prayers they put on YouTube, just real talk between me and heaven. Lord, if you still got work for me, I'm listening. And he answered. Not with thunder, not with a sign, just with an email. Next morning, my inbox had a message from the United Nations Women's Initiative. Subject line, Keynote Inquiry, Helen Harper. They were hosting a global conference in Geneva. Theme, Faith and Leadership in a Fractured World. They wanted me to speak. I sat there staring at the screen, hand over my mouth, heart thumping like a drumline. Me, I whispered. All the way over there? Then I laughed. Lord, you got jokes. But okay. The months that followed were a blur. Visas, passports, press interviews, fittings for a speech I hadn't even written yet. Tanya came to help, full of ideas and joy like a sunrise in sneakers. Miss Helen, this is history. You nervous? Baby, nervous is just excitement that forgot to pray. The day I landed in Geneva, it was raining. Cold rain, European, expensive kind of rain that smelled like marble floors and old power. When I walked into that conference hall, heads turned. Not because of who I was, but because of the way peace walks. It don't ask for permission to shine. The event coordinator, a British woman named Charlotte, hugged me tight. Miss Harper, your work has inspired women across 3 continents. All I did was tell the truth, I said. That's exactly what makes it global. When my turn came to speak, the lights dimmed. I took the stage in a cream suit and gold heels, the kind that whisper confidence without shouting budget. I opened with the same line that started it all. He called me too spiritual. The translator in the booth paused, then smiled. That phrase didn't need translation. But the thing about too much, I continued, is it's usually said by people who don't have enough. Gasps, laughter, nods. I could feel it, hearts cracking open in real time. Faith doesn't belong to religion, I said. It belongs to rhythm. The rhythm that says get up one more time even when reason says stay down. After the speech, reporters swarmed. CNN, BBC, Essence magazine. Every mic felt like déjà vu dressed in destiny. One reporter asked, Miss Harper, what would you say to people who still mock women of faith in corporate spaces? I'd say mockery is just free marketing, I replied. Every time they talk down on you, they give the world a reason to look up. Back at the hotel, I took off my heels and sat by the window overlooking Lake Geneva. The city lights shimmered across the water like blessings floating home. And for the first time, I didn't pray for more. I just said thank you, because baby, gratitude is a full sentence. 2 weeks later, when I returned to Atlanta, the airport looked different. Not because it changed, because I did. You can tell when peace upgrades you. Everything familiar starts bowing a little lower. Renee met me at arrivals, waving like I was coming home from war. Mama, I watched the live stream. You understood any of it? Not the parts in French, she laughed, but I cried when they stood up for you. We hugged so long, people clapped. I'm proud of you, Mama, she said. I'm proud of us, I told her. You taught me that faith don't just move mountains, it raises daughters. A week later, I got invited to guest lecture at Emory University's School of Business. Same campus where years ago, a professor once told me, Helen, you have passion, but no polish. That man was still teaching. So when I walked in to give my lecture, Faith as a Leadership Model, and saw him sitting in the front row, my spirit chuckled. Professor Daniels, I said from the stage, nice to see you again. He smiled awkwardly. Good to see your progress, Miss Harper. It's Mrs. now, I said with a wink. Married to my purpose. The students howled. But after class, he came up and said, You proved me wrong. No, I said gently. You just didn't see me right. That evening, as I walked to my car, a student ran up. Her name was Lila, 22, bright-eyed, shaking. Miss Helen, I grew up watching you on YouTube. My mama used to say, "That woman's too spiritual," but now she's praying every morning. "And what about you?" I asked. I started too. Then the legacy already working. She hugged me, tears falling onto my shoulder like confirmation. That night, I sat on my porch again. Same one, same view, same wind, carrying prayers into the dark. I lit the too spiritual candle and whispered, if they only knew what it took to be this peaceful. Then I laughed. Because peace, baby, is the loudest flex in the world. Success feels different when you can finally breathe through it. It don't hum with anxiety or shake with proof. It just rests. But even rest got rhythm. And God's rhythm always got one more beat before the song ends. It was late autumn when Dalton came to my office, shoulders tight, jaw working like a man holding back a storm. "You got a minute?" "For you? Always." He closed the door behind him. That's never a good sign. I've been thinking about stepping down. From the foundation. From everything. I leaned back, slow. "Talk to me." He rubbed his hands together, those same hands that used to shake during prayer, now trembling for a different reason. I feel outgrown, like maybe this chapter don't need me anymore. "You sure it's the chapter?" I asked, "or the spotlight?" He looked up, surprised. What's that supposed to mean? Sometimes God pulls you off stage not because the play is over, but because he's changing your script. He exhaled, head in his hands. "I don't even know who I am without this work." "Then that's your next miracle," I said. "Finding out." He took a sabbatical, moved to Savannah with Alicia, said he wanted to write a book. I told him I'd buy the first copy. That left me to run the foundation alone. And honey, let me tell you, leadership without backup feels a lot like fasting. Necessary, holy, but hungry. Weeks later, Tanya stopped by my house on a Sunday afternoon. No makeup, no laptop, just her and 2 caramel fraps. "Miss Helen, you need a break." "I'm fine." "No, you're not. You're tired in your eyes." I smiled because she wasn't wrong. "What does rest even look like anymore?" I asked. "Maybe it looks like doing something that don't make sense." "Like what?" "Like disappearing for a while." She handed me an envelope. Inside, a plane ticket to Jamaica. Round trip. No meetings, no agenda, just ocean. "Tanya, you poured into everybody else. Time to let the tide pour back." That's how I ended up on a beach in Montego Bay, barefoot in linen pants, hair wild and free, watching waves roll like amens I didn't have to say out loud. For the first 3 days, I didn't open my laptop, didn't check email, didn't answer calls. I just listened. To seagulls, to strangers laughing, to myself. On the 4th day, I met a woman named Mara. She ran a small seaside cafe, said she recognized me from That Oprah Show. "You that woman who talk about faith and finance, yes?" "That's me." "Well," she said, smiling, "faith built this place when money couldn't." We talked for hours. About God, about grief, about how both make you start over. She told me her husband passed 5 years ago and that every latte she served was a prayer for someone else's healing. When I asked how she kept going, she said, "Because peace love company." That line stuck to my ribs. Back at my hotel that night, I journaled like my hands were catching fire. Everything poured out. Memories, mistakes, miracles. At the bottom of the page, I wrote, "Peace Love Company," but I've spent years entertaining chaos. And I knew right then, when I got home, things were about to change again. The moment I landed back in Atlanta, my phone buzzed nonstop. News outlets wanted interviews. One of the women from our foundation had just landed a multi-million-dollar partnership with Google. The story went viral. "Faith-based founder makes tech history," Dalton called that night. "You see the news?" I did. "You proud?" "Always." "You coming to the gala?" "Wouldn't miss it." The gala. Oh, baby. Gold lights, red carpet, choir singing total praise like heaven RSVP'd. I wore a deep emerald dress and peace like perfume. Dalton and Alicia were there, glowing like restoration in motion. Tanya gave a speech that had half the room sniffling into napkins. When my turn came, I walked up slow, letting the applause fade before speaking. They called me too spiritual once. Laughter rippled through the crowd. They knew the story by heart now. But tonight ain't about who said it. It's about who believed me anyway. I pointed toward the tables of women, nurses, single moms, entrepreneurs, every one of them standing proof that faith got a return policy. We don't build businesses here, I said. We build believers. The audience stood, not clapping, praising. Because when you tell the truth long enough, people stop hearing it as inspiration. They start hearing it as instruction. After the gala, as the lights dimmed, Dalton found me on the balcony. "You know," he said, "I was wrong about stepping down. You made this bigger than both of us." "No," I said softly. "God did. We just kept the receipts." He smiled. "I think I'm ready to come back." "Then come on home, Brother Dalton. The table's still set." That night, when I got home, I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the window. City lights blinked like little reminders. Still here, still shining. Then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. This time, the message read, "Miss Helen, it's Marcus Jr. again. My dad passed away yesterday. His last words were, 'Tell Helen thank you for praying me through.'" I set the phone down, closed my eyes, and for the first time since that marriage broke, I cried. Not from pain, but from release. Because forgiveness ain't about freeing them. It's about freeing yourself from remembering the wrong version of you. I lit the too spiritual candle one more time, watched its flame dance like laughter between lifetimes. Then I whispered, "Thank you, Lord," for every no that became a testimony. The morning after Marcus Jr.'s message, the air felt different, still, honest, like even the sunlight wanted to whisper instead of shine. I made my coffee slow, 2 sugars, no cream, the way peace tastes when it's earned. And I sat there at my kitchen table, the same one I once cried over rent notices on. Now it was covered in notes from producers, invitations, award plaques, and one folded piece of paper that read, "Too spiritual." I kept that phrase. Framed it, actually, because sometimes the insults they throw at you are just seeds mislabeled. I thought about Marcus that morning. Not with anger, not with longing. Just gratitude. He didn't break me. He revealed the part of me that couldn't be broken. And in that moment, I realized something. Every person who ever underestimated me was just helping build my testimony's scaffolding. Later that week, I flew to New York for an interview on The View. Bright lights, cameras, 4 women waiting on that couch like truth was about to clock in for work. The host smiled and said, "Miss Helen, millions of people know you as the woman who turned prayer into purpose. What's next for you?" I took a deep breath. "Peace," I said. "More. Peace?" "No," I smiled. "Deeper peace. The kind that don't need applause or achievement to stay alive." After the show, I took a walk through Central Park. Leaves were falling like grace, soft, steady, unbothered by who noticed. A young woman stopped me by the fountain. "Excuse me, are you Helen Harper?" "Depends who's asking." "I watched your video after my layoff. I thought my life was over. Now I'm launching a small bakery." I smiled. "Then your life just started, baby." She hugged me, tight. The kind of hug that says, "You don't know me, but you healed me anyway." Back in Atlanta, I visited Mama's old church on Jefferson Street, the one where my story really started. Pews still creaked the same. That smell of wood polish and old hymns still hugged the air. When the pastor saw me, he smiled wide. "Sister Helen, we see you on TV every week. The saint's proud of you." "Thank you, Pastor." "You come to testify?" "No," I said softly, "just to say thank you." I walked down the aisle past the pulpit and sat in the front pew, closed my eyes. "Lord," I whispered, "I didn't do it perfect, but I did it with purpose." And just like that, peace showed up again, No trumpet, no tears, just stillness. A few days later, Tanya stopped by my house with a surprise, a hardcover book. On the cover, Faith Has a Fee, the Helen Harper story. What is this? Your life. I wrote it. You what? I had all the transcripts from our events, interviews, speeches. I wanted to document the journey. I held that book like it was glass and glory mixed together. You publishing this? Only if you say yes. Then yes, I whispered, because stories don't serve anyone sitting in silence. When the book came out, it hit bestseller lists in a week, not because I was famous, but because folks were hungry for proof that purpose still paid. One review said, Helen Harper writes like a woman who met God in the break room and invited him to the boardroom. I laughed when I read that, because that's exactly what happened. Months later, the foundation expanded into Africa and the Caribbean. Dalton ran logistics, Tanya oversaw mentorship, and Renee joined as creative director. 3 generations of faith, finally working side by side. During our first international summit in Ghana, I stood on that stage, microphone in one hand, Bible in the other, looking out at hundreds of women chanting, "Too spiritual, too spiritual." It echoed across the hall like thunder, blessed in stereo, and I felt tears rise, not from sadness, but from legacy. That's when I realized this wasn't revenge anymore. It was resurrection. After the summit, I sat outside watching the sunset burn the sky into gold. Dalton walked over, hands in pockets. You ever think about retiring? From what? Purpose don't do retirement plans. You could rest, Helen. I am resting, just in motion. He smiled, nodding. You always got a word. And you always show up right before it hits. That night, I went live on social media for the first time in months. Hundreds joined within seconds, hearts floating across the screen like confetti. Good evening, y'all. It's your girl, Helen. I just wanted to say this. If somebody ever calls you too spiritual, too emotional, too much, thank them. Because what they really mean is you make them uncomfortable with your peace. I paused. Let silence work its own sermon. Don't dim your light to match somebody else's blindness. You were made to shine at full wattage. The chat exploded. Amen. Say that, Miss Helen. I needed this today. Now, before I go, I said, smiling, I want y'all to remember, favor don't expire. It just waits for you to renew your faith. When I ended the live, my phone buzzed again, this time a message from Tanya. They loved it. Over 1 million views already. Good, I typed back. Let's make sure they love themselves next. That night, I walked outside barefoot, stood under the moonlight, and let the quiet hum around me. Fireflies danced across my lawn like tiny prayers that didn't need words, and I said it out loud just once more, like a benediction. He called me too spiritual, then begged my prayers in bankruptcy. I looked up, smiled at the stars, and whispered, and God said, exactly. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.